What happens when Hollywood drops the glamour and goes all in on truth? Most combat films sugarcoat the chaos, but a rare few aim straight at authenticity. The smell of smoke, the confusion, the fear. These are not just stories. They are living history pieced together from veterans' memories and mission logs. We are counting down 12 American combat films that were so precise, so painfully real, that historians could not tell where the reenactment ended and the truth began. Each one stripped away Hollywood gloss to show what bravery, confusion, and endurance really looked like. The Longest Day from 1962 set the standard before Saving Private Ryan stormed pop culture. Producer Daryl F. Zanuck was not interested in hero shots. He wanted a record. He mortgaged his own home to fund this enormous recreation of D-Day shot on the real Normandy beaches where the invasion happened. Every uniform, landing craft, and patch of sand was checked against Allied records. Zanuck brought in dozens of D-Day veterans as technical advisors and hired multiple directors to represent each national perspective: American, British, and French. Every frame carried its own authenticity. The casting itself became part of the experiment. John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Richard Burton stood side by side with real soldiers reliving their invasion. For one jaw-dropping sequence, aging Army Rangers scaled the cliffs at Pointe du Hoc, just as they had on June 6, 1944. No stunt doubles, no green screens, just pure muscle memory and salt air. Former President Dwight D. Eisenhower himself screened the movie and called it the most truthful D-Day film ever made. Critics said it felt more like a documentary than a drama. Historians still use it as a teaching reference. If The Longest Day laid the groundwork, Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan from 1998 blew the walls down. The opening scene at Omaha Beach is not just filmmaking, it is time travel. Shot with handheld cameras, desaturated colors, and practical effects, it put audiences shoulder to shoulder with the terrified soldiers of 1944. Spielberg hired veterans, historians, and combat advisors who had actually been there. The actors were thrown into an exhausting boot camp led by former Marines. They learned how to crawl, move, and panic exactly like real soldiers, not the choreographed kind, the ones making split-second decisions just to stay alive. Military historians praised the film's technical accuracy from the chain of command down to how medics wrapped wounds under fire. But what really hit home was the moral reality. No clean victories, no glamour. Just young men who aged 10 years in one morning. Ridley Scott's A Black Hawk, down from 2001, recreated the 1993 Mogadishu raid with precision so sharp the Pentagon screened it for training. Scott built the sets using satellite photos of the real city. The cast, including Josh Hartnett and Eric Bana, trained with Army Rangers and Delta operators who had actually fought there. Every move, every radio call, every exhausted breath came from declassified mission logs. The production's attention to accuracy was obsessive. They used real military equipment, choreographed firefights using authentic communication codes, and consulted surviving participants daily. Several veterans even appeared on set to coach actors through the physical and emotional toll. The film showed the chaos without glorifying the mission, the dust storms, the confusion, the human cost. Historians praised how it captured the breakdown of coordination and the courage of ordinary soldiers caught in extraordinary circumstances. When the movie premiered, service members recognized the smallest details: the nervous laughter before deployment, the sound of rotors echoing off city walls, the quiet after everything goes wrong. Black Hawk Down remains the benchmark for modern military realism, a film less about heroics and more about endurance. Mel Gibson's We Were Soldiers from 2002 recreated the Battle of Ia Drang from 1965 with haunting authenticity. Based on Lieutenant General Hal Moore and Joe Galloway's memoir, it tells the story of the first major conflict between U.S. and North Vietnamese forces. Director Randall Wallace worked side by side with Moore himself, using real tactical maps and soldier testimonies to recreate the field conditions down to the minute. The uniforms were tailored to the exact stitching of 1960s combat gear. Even the dust patterns of the valley were replicated using aerial photos from the original site. The film's dialogue lifted lines straight from recorded radio transmissions. Gibson trained with military advisors to move and speak like Moore, while extras learned how to perform as a cohesive platoon. Historians applauded how the movie balanced grit with respect. It showed the confusion of early helicopter warfare and the communication breakdowns that cost lives. More importantly, it portrayed the humanity on both sides. When the real Hal Moore saw the finished cut, he said that's how it happened. For a man who lived it, there is no higher compliment. Clint Eastwood returned to realism with American Sniper in 2014, the true story of Navy SEAL marksman Chris Kyle. Instead of glorifying the legend, the film peeled back the myth to show what accuracy really costs. Bradley Cooper gained 40 pounds, trained with actual military instructors, and studied. Hours of combat footage to understand every movement, posture, and habit. Eastwood's production consulted Kyle's unit members to ensure every detail matched reality, from the sandstorm lighting to the communication patterns between ground teams. Scenes were shot using natural light and long takes to mimic the endless stillness of observation posts. Even the set design recreated the exact layouts of the cities where Kyle operated using Google Earth scans and photographs from the field. Historians praised the film for highlighting something rarely shown: the psychological exhaustion of sustained vigilance. Cooper's performance avoided bravado, focusing on the toll that precision takes on the mind. The result was a movie that split audiences emotionally, but united historians in agreement. It looked, sounded, and felt like the real thing. Sam Mendes' 1917 from 2019 makes you live a story rather than just tell one. Inspired by stories his grandfather told from the First World War, Mendes wanted audiences to feel the heartbeat of a single mission. The result was a near one-shot journey through mud, wire, and memory that critics called the most immersive combat film ever made. Mendes worked closely with historians and battlefield consultants to ensure every trench, map, and uniform matched the conditions of 1917 France. The film was shot on open farmland, using actual sunlight patterns to mirror natural conditions soldiers faced. The choreography of the actors came from documented soldier behavior in field manuals: when they stopped to reload, when they flinched from a passing plane. Cinematographer Roger Deakins filmed long continuous takes, forcing actors to endure real exhaustion as they sprinted across fields under simulated artillery fire. Every stumble, every gasp was genuine. If an actor tripped, the camera kept rolling just as war does. Historians praised how 1917 depicted communication breakdowns, delayed orders, and the terrifying loneliness of trench warfare. The film's accuracy in tone, detail, and physicality earned applause from military historians who said it felt like reading a veteran's diary come to life. Mel Gibson's Hacksaw Ridge from 2016 tells the story of Army medic Desmond Doss's impossible bravery during the Battle of Okinawa. Doss refused to carry a firearm, yet saved 75 wounded men under relentless fire. Gibson's crew recreated the Maeda escarpment, nicknamed Hacksaw Ridge, using historical blueprints, military maps, and interviews with survivors. The cliff's steep incline and muddy conditions were rebuilt to exact dimensions, making every climb physically punishing for the cast. Actors performed their own rope ascents and stretcher drags using actual combat gear from the 1940s. Costume designers sourced authentic World War II fabric, while special effects artists modeled their pyrotechnics on original military test footage. Historians called it one of the most accurate portrayals of field medicine in wartime cinema. The way Doss wrapped wounds, dragged soldiers, and used his body as a shield came directly from first-hand reports. Gibson filmed much of it in sequence so that Andrew Garfield's exhaustion was real. When Doss's surviving comrades saw the finished film, they were stunned. It was like watching him again, one said quietly. Mark Wahlberg's Lone Survivor from 2013 feels lived rather than staged. Based on Marcus Luttrell's real-life account of Operation Red Wings, director Peter Berg worked hand-in-hand with Navy SEAL consultants, including Luttrell himself, who trained the actors personally. The cast underwent weeks of authentic physical conditioning, tactical drills, and live field exercises in the same mountain terrain type where the real event occurred. The film's production team studied declassified reports to rebuild the exact sequence of communication errors and terrain challenges that doomed the mission. Instead of using exaggerated sound design, Berg insisted on real echoes and gunfire reverberations recorded in remote Utah canyons. Historians praised it for focusing not on politics or glory, but on the psychology of endurance. Marcus Luttrell, who visited the set daily later, said it was like reliving the mission, and that scared me. Clint Eastwood's Flags of Our Fathers from 2006 tells the story behind the iconic photograph of Marines raising the flag on Iwo Jima. Shot in collaboration with historians and with cooperation from the U.S. Marine Corps, Eastwood's team rebuilt sections of the Iwo Jima battlefield using blueprints and aerial photographs from 1945. They imported volcanic sand to match the island's texture and constructed the same ridgelines where the famous flag raising occurred. Actors underwent Marine boot camp under real instructors, learning posture, speech, and how to maintain formation during confusion. Historians praised how the film dismantled the mythology of the famous image, showing the men not as propaganda figures, but as exhausted survivors. It recreated the public tours, the awkward hero worship, and the quiet guilt that followed them home. One of the Marine advisors said it was not just accurate, it was painful, because it felt like looking in a mirror. Sam Mendes' Jarhead from 2005 offered something rarely seen in combat cinema: boredom, confusion, and the suffocating anticipation that defines modern warfare. Based on Anthony Swafford's memoir, Mendes recruited former Marines as trainers, teaching the cast the daily rhythms of desert deployment. The set was built in California's desert under the same temperature and lighting conditions as Kuwait, ensuring every beat of sweat was real. What makes Jarhead so accurate is not combat choreography, but emotional truth. The film captures what military historians call the waiting war, long stretches of stillness punctuated by bursts of chaos. Historians praised it for stripping away heroics and exposing the alienation soldiers felt returning home. The Outpost from 2020 stunned critics and historians alike for its brutal honesty. Director Lurie, a West Point graduate himself, filmed with the precision of someone who knew every rank, every command, every mistake that could cost lives. Based on Jake Tapper's book about the Battle of Kamdesh, the film recreated combat outpost Keating using satellite images and field diagrams from military archives. Actors like Scott Eastwood and Caleb Landry Jones trained under real soldiers following military routines for weeks before filming. Dialogue was lifted directly from radio logs, and choreography mirrored the official Army investigation reports minute by minute. Lurie cast several real veterans as supporting actors, grounding every scene in authenticity. Historians applauded how the film balanced intensity with clarity, showing not chaos but organized desperation. Ken Burns's documentary series, The War from 2007, earns the top spot because it did something even feature films could not. It captured the voices, faces, and diaries of Americans who lived through World War II, stitching them into one seamless portrait of authenticity. Every letter, photograph, and personal account was verified against historical records. Burns refused reenactments or dramatization. Instead, he layered real footage with the words of ordinary citizens, soldiers, nurses, families letting the truth speak without embellishment. Historians hailed it as a masterclass in accuracy. It showed the emotional geography of war, how decisions made in Washington echoed in small-town kitchens. The series does not glamorize, it documents. The pain, humor, and resilience all coexist without music cues telling you how to feel. Viewers came away not entertained, but changed. And maybe that is the ultimate measure of authenticity. When a film stops being about war and becomes about people surviving it.